looked at. So we looked at some of that variation. Based on that, we have made some assumptions in our modeling about if a provider were to participate, say, in the Preschool Promise or whatever the program might be called, that you could tie the reimbursement, the amount of money that provider would get, to their quality level. And we've based that assumption as to, if you think about the 5-star as being the full reimbursement, what the markdown is as you go to the lower star levels in terms of a reduction in reimbursement, based upon assumptions that because they aren't, for example, employing BA level staff, they don't have the same compensation costs and so on. So that's built into the modeling as well. Okay, so let me talk about some of the underlying factors that go into the modeling and our assumptions, and then move on to some of the other parameters. This chart just sets up some of the key features that, thinking about different scenarios and modeling, that particularly have implications for cost. They also have implications for what you might expect the downstream benefits would be. So we're going to differentiate between a targeted program and universal. Targeted being programs that would focus on subsidized preschool for a low-income group. We're going to use 200% of poverty to define our main low-income group. So above 200% of poverty, when we go to universal, we're going to include subsidies, but they're going to be fading out as family income rises. So it's a type of sliding scale, if you will, benefit that as income gets higher, the benefit to the family would get lower. We're going to look at programs that serve both exclusively 4-year-olds and aren't trying to add funding for 3-year-olds. We're going to look at a scenario where it's both 3s and 4s. One thing that's important to understand is that even in the 4-year-old scenario only, 3-year-olds still participate in Head Start. There would still be the funding for child care subsidies for those children. So it's not as if they're now being excluded from all early learning opportunities. It's just not an expansion of the status quo. The intensity, whether a program is part day or full day, school year or calendar year, that obviously has big implications for costs. As we look at the various modeling scenarios, the ones we've been looking at assume a school day program, a 6-hour day program, as well as an academic year. So we've not been modeling a summer program. And in the case of the school day program, we account for the possibility that some families might choose to be in a part-day program. So there's an underlying assumption about the proportion of families that would pick a part-day program versus those that would look for a school day program. There's still the question for families that are working about the extended day. And so while that's not a direct component of our modeling, we do allow for subsidy dollars that are already in the system to be used for that purpose, which is what's done in some other states where they have state-funded preschool, and on top of that, subsidy dollars are used to have an extended day. In terms of quality, again, you could make a range of assumptions. So we're going to be basing our modeling around quality tied to the step-up to quality rating system. And so that's going to assume in a star 5 that you have the features that are in step-up to quality, which includes BA level teachers, rigorous curriculum, and so on and so forth. I mentioned already that the subsidy, we're looking at a range from a full subsidy to the sliding scale. In all our models, under 200% of poverty is a full subsidy, and then it's a sliding scale thereafter. And you can think about this model as already starting with the current base of funding, because we build that into the model. So any funding that we're looking at would be new funding added to that existing funding. The main issue with the existing funding has to do with those child care subsidy dollars. How much of that funding can we think about as being available specifically for a preschool program for 3 and 4-year-olds? So we're still refining some of our estimates of how much of that money, for example, goes to support kids in the summertime, how much might be used for an extended day, how much is already tied to blending with Head Start. So we don't want to double count or double dip those funds, but really set those aside as already being part of the system as it is today, and that only anything incrementally left after that might be available for the school. Yes.
The 18 million that funding number included, you mentioned that was ages 0 to 12. Is that just for the 3 and 4-year-olds?
Yes, as far as we understand, again, one of the issues we've had is we've gotten data from the county and data from the states, and those two numbers look a little different. So we're trying to reconcile that, but we did specifically focus in on the 3s and 4s. Let's talk for a moment about cost. So we look to cost data in several different ways. The top panel here is some cost data associated with some of these other programs that we reviewed in our first study, New Jersey's program, which is a targeted program, Boston Pre-K, which is universal, although largely serving low-income children, North Carolina statewide program. You can see there's a pretty big range of costs. Some of this has to do with differences of costs in the community, being in an urban setting and so on. But also some of it has to do with what these programs look like, what kinds of preschool opportunities they're delivering. New Jersey's program, Boston's program, both use VA level teachers, both pay teachers at parity with public school teachers, and they're largely delivered in public school settings, but there's parity for those outside of the schools. And so that's in part responsible for that relatively higher cost. You can see on this middle panel just some estimates of how assumptions like how big is the group size and what's the lead teacher's pay. Teachers are close to parity. When we bring in the parity assumption, that adds about $2,000 per child. So you can see that we're in the range of what these other programs nationally look like, somewhere in the $9,000, potentially as high as $11,000 per child for a school day academic year program. All right, so the range of scenarios that we're looking at includes these 5 that are shown here. They differ in whether or not they're serving exclusively 4-year-olds or a combination of 3s and 4s, and whether or not they're universal versus targeted. So the way to look at it is starting with the far right. That's sort of the most constrained scenario, if you will, in that you're not including 3-year-olds, it's only 4-year-olds, and it's targeted to those below 200% of poverty. So that's the most narrow program. It's going to be the one that's the least costly. As you move in this direction, scenario D takes that targeted group and makes it universal. It's still 4-year-olds only, but now all 4-year-olds would potentially be eligible for some kind of a subsidy, again with this sliding scale or fade out as family income rises. Scenario C is targeted now, but both 3s and 4s. Scenario B is targeted 3s, but universal 4s, and then finally scenario A is universal for both groups. So you can see we're stepping up as we go here from more constrained program to one that is more inclusive. And in each of these scenarios, we've got these assumptions about what targeted universal looks like. We also have some of these common assumptions that I've mentioned already. Each scenario assumes a school day program with a part day option for an academic year. The tuition credits, the subsidy, however you want to refer to it, increases with provider quality. So there's that relationship between star 3, star 4, and star 5. And most importantly, because of this quality shortfall that we've identified, all of these scenarios include quality investment funds to grow quality, to bring providers that are lower quality up in quality, to bring those that are outside of the quality rating system into the system. The additional funds required of about $9 million per year to closer to $25 million per year. And the modeling that we've done is actually either a 5-year or a 10-year model. You can think of these numbers as being averages over that 5 or 10-year horizon, because we do have this be something that ramps up over time, particularly because of the limitations on the quality seats. We have a pretty conservative assumption right now about how quickly you can move providers up in quality. There's also the possibility that existing high-quality providers could expand. And so we're looking at some possible modifications to those assumptions that might allow us to get to quality faster. Because even by the end of a 10-year scenario, with the current assumptions we have in this model, there's still a shortfall of quality seats because of the size of that, the size of that gap. So within this modeling exercise, in addition to looking at sort of bottom line numbers, we have it broken out by where the subsidies would go in terms of the different income levels. Relatively little subsidy is going when we have the universal program up at those higher income levels. We've tapered off how generous the subsidy is as you go to higher income. So it's a way of saying everybody is eligible to participate, but the main focus in terms of resources is on the lowest income families. We can also look at how the assumptions unfold in terms of where the seats are in terms of different types of providers and different quality levels. So this was the set of conclusions that I put up there at the beginning. I think ultimately this quality constraint is the binding constraint for the city in thinking about moving forward. There are existing resources in the system to build upon, otherwise that bottom line number would be even larger. But that gap in quality is really the key. So this is one reason why, partly in our modeling, but it also may be something to think about policy-wise, that there may be a strategy of starting more like a scenario on the right side that's more targeted, more limited, focused, say, for example, on 4-year-olds or 3 and 4s, and then gradually over time move in the direction where we're incorporating a broader group of particularly children within the program. And I think, let me just briefly say something about remaining steps. So we are in the process of finalizing that modeling effort with some of the data and some of the assumptions. One thing that's nice about the funders having made this investment in the model is that that model will be available to you all beyond the end of, when RAND concludes the study, we'll publish our findings. And I know there's been discussions about being able to continue to look at alternative scenarios and so on. And ultimately, this kind of model is extremely helpful as you even get to implementation, to be able to see year by year, are we meeting our targets, are we exceeding where we thought we would be, and being able to build from there. The findings are being documented in a draft report that will go through a review process, both peer review and sponsor review, and then publication and dissemination. We're anticipating that there'll be dissemination largely through presentations and a set of slides in advance of the final written report being available. So let me stop there and see what other questions and discussion we might have. And I'm going to start with the